Hey guys, real quick before the video starts in earnest. Just want to go over two things. Number one, this video is accidentally in 30 frames per second because I'm an idiot and didn't set the project in DaVinci Resolve to 60 frames per second until about halfway through the video, and it would have messed everything up, so I just kept it in 30 frames. Sorry about that. I'll be sure to double check that before starting my next video. Second thing, I do get some very key information incorrect in this video repeatedly. Basically, I forgot that those affixes that affect non-boss enemies that Blizz was going to implement were actually shown 2 weeks ago. I kept thinking that they were shown last week, and I keep referring to them being last week and how Blizz changed things only after 1 week. So that's again my bad. It was 2 weeks ago, not last week. I'm an idiot. Sorry about that. Without further ado though, let's get to the video. How's it guys, I'm Nazubro, and Mythic Plus may have just been saved. Pulled back from the brink by Blizzard in some extremely rapid iteration and changes revealed this week as a direct response to feedback about those affixes they had revealed last week. That is some serious breakneck pace development, holy moly. Now, the Mythic Plus stuff is the biggest story this week, so I'll get into that in a bit. So let's instead spend some time first going over some of the other interesting bits and bobs from the week. Starting off with some Delve rewards. Now Blizz told us from the get-go that the War Within's first season would have a customizable airship mount tied to Delve progression, similar to the customizable dragons we have now in Dragonflight. I'm glad they're still using this mount customization tech, although I would not have predicted an aircraft mount being the first new one we get after our dragon collection. And of course the Algarian Griffin. To be honest, I would have expected something like maybe a Griffin mount for the Alliance, customizable with heraldry and regalia of the different races and racial cities, and then a Wyvern or Wind Rider, whatever they're called, for the Horde. Either way, some really sweet customizations for the craft got data mined this week, alongside some other cosmetics. These rewards were actually tied to the achievements that were introduced in the first build of the beta, but were then removed from the achievements, but now have been associated back with them. We can now take a look at these things on Wowhead, and they are quite nice. All three of these achievements are related to the big bad of the first season of Delves, a lieutenant of Xal'atath by the name of Zekfir. If you're out of the loop, basically there are 13 Delves total, with 12 of them being known and openly tested by Blizz. The 13th, however, is a secret, and is the lair of Zekfir himself. Throughout Season 1, Zekfir will prove to be a pain in your ass by screwing with your Delve runs, and his defeat in the final 13th Delve is sort of like a capstone event for Delves in the first season. The first of these achievements is called Nemesis, which is just to give him the business before the release of Season 2. For this achievement, you get a really nice back piece with moving claws or mandibles from the man or bug himself. The second achievement is to complete Zekfir's Delve on the maximum difficulty, which awards the title Ascension Breaker. Very nice title. But then the achievement for doing it on max difficulty by your lonesome awards this void airship appearance for your customizable vessel. Look at this thing, how cool is that? It's a full transformation like some of the dragon ones we've gotten from raids and PvP here in Dragonflight. While we're on the topic of the airship, let's take a look at some of the other looks for it. So far, it looks like we can choose between different tops, like gliders, or even a propeller. Wings on the side, the nose, the color, even the banner to rep your faction. It also looks really clean, much more like a finished product compared to other mechanical vehicles in the Warcraft universe, especially anything made by the goblins. I think I fall squarely under the umbrella of players that Delves are made for. What Holly Longdale referred to as the mid-core player. So the fact that Delves give something so nice as a reward is awesome. Okay, moving on. We've got some dev notes and some news for all of you Shaman enjoyers out there. For the Shaman specifically, Blizz revealed in a blue post that they have sucked up all that feedback that has been piling up for Shamans, and have some big changes lined up for the next week beta build. Sounds good, especially since the weekly dev notes are lacking much of anything for Shaman. Hoping for the best, and I'll be sure to see how things turned out in my next news video. Speaking of those dev notes, we have the usual stack of class tuning and updates, and also some updates to Avoidance and Leech. Blizz seemed to take a hammer and smack the ever-living shit out of both stats, reducing the percentage granted by your avoidance and leech ratings by a whopping 50%. They also took a pass at most of the talents that have leech and avoidance in them, reducing the ratings across the board. The reasoning seems to be to try to curb the power of avoidance and leech by expansion's end, and to rein it in to narrow that gap between players, and try to reduce the feeling of high avoidance and leech being required. Makes sense, but nerfs never feel good. We'll see if it's something noticeable once we're in the War Within endgame. As always, link to the dev notes in the description to peruse at your leisure. Also found in the beta is the login screen. I love it when the login screen finally updates so we can see what tunes we'll be listening to every time we boot the game up for the next 2-ish years. The login screen isn't implemented yet, and so the music is still unknown, but the look of the login screen is something. It's basically the logo of the expansion instead of the usual landscape or portal or something that we're usually used to, which does seem to have let some people down. This login screen does imply that the next two for the World Soul Saga will be similar, just stylized to match their expansion's logo. I'm not exactly in love with it, but for me the music is a bit more important since it is the thing that you were exposed to for far longer when logging in and choosing your character. Plus, if your game takes forever to load, you'll be listening to the music even more. I really like Dragonflight's login medley, so I'm still hopeful. Sorry if you're disappointed by this one though, hopefully the music will be enough to offset that. Next up, I hope you're ready to collect your tendies for the upcoming trading post because Blizz put out their usual trading post preview to give us a peek at what's coming up. I hope you love the Deep Ocean and Naga, because that seems to be July's vibe. We've got some oceanic offerings up for grabs, and yeah, another pet as bonus reward for completing your Traveler's Log. Sorry if you don't like pets, but on the bright side this one does seem to be a cut above some of the pets we've gotten before. I don't mind pets. I actually did drop 600 tendies on this time-lost Palamanther several months back because I wanted an in-game pet that looks like my real-life pet leopard gecko named Gamma. That is the only time I have dropped the tendies on a pet though. I think I'll actually put out a small video taking a look at the stuff on offer once it rolls over to July. I need that content, bros, don't judge. So go ahead and subscribe, thanks bros, love you. Speaking of the trading post though, we have also gotten a glimpse into August's selection thanks to data mining of the beta. The theme for August seems to be the good old red versus blue, alliance versus horde vibes, with two counterpart mounts that kind of remind me of the alliance wolf and horde horse from the two sides of every story achievement back in BFA. This time it's still a wolf, but in night elf armor instead, with a night saber all dressed up in horde drip as the counterpart. There's a whole other selection of the usual things, so we can take a look once they're all available in-game to inspect more closely. Alright, now let's get into the big ticket item for today's episode, MYTHIC Plus. Now, I will be completely straight with you. I'm not an expert when it comes to MYTHIC Plus. I have not interacted with it very much in the past, and basically not at all in Dragonflight. None of my real-life friends play WoW, and my guild is pretty sleepy and has been for most of Dragonflight, unfortunately. I don't have any elite key-pushing friends, so all my research is kind of on the outside, but that's not going to stop me from trying my best to see what's up. So let's break it down. If you remember last week, Blizz outlined their plans for affixes in MYTHIC Plus for War Within. Long story short, they revealed a set of rotating affixes that buff non-boss enemies in dungeons, but then also makes them susceptible to different damage types. While in theory it was supposed to spice things up every week without being too intrusive, the fact that different damage types would be more useful in certain weeks basically meant some classes would be dead all the time, and some would be juiced up all the time. Everyone was very quick to point out that this would be a problem, and basically spawned god comps, probably consisting of demon hunters and warlocks, mostly because of their all-encompassing chaos damage. Well, Blizz listened and, in 1 week, redefined the entire affix game completely. So what are the changes? Well, if you were someone who hates sanguine, bolstering, raging, and bursting, then I have got some very good news for you. In War Within, they're dead. Yeah, dead. Completely gone. Rejoice. Those 4 affixes that would have put demon hunters and warlocks on top of the food chain? Also gone. So what's in their place? Blizz has decided to take another crack at themed affixes, and making things a bit more consistent week on week. The whole vibe is that Xal'atath is messing with your dungeons, giving certain advantages while also upping certain risks. Let's take a look. So there are 4 new affixes, 3 of which are themed after Xal'atath. The first 2 are Xal'atath's Bargain Ascended and Xal'atath's Bargain Frenzy. Ascended makes it so that while in combat, a bunch of void orbs might rain down on you that will start casting a spell to empower trash mobs with a haste and movement speed buff. If you manage to stop the orbs by interrupting them or stunning them or something, you instead get that buff. In Frenzy's case, when trash mobs hit 30% HP, they start going crazy with a huge 40% haste buff, but then take 20% more damage from you and your team. So kill them fast before they kill you fast. The other two affixes are called Xal'atath's Guile and Challenger's Peril. Challenger's Peril makes it so that death subtracts 15 seconds from your timer if you die instead of 5, and Guile is just a flat increase of health and damage to enemies. Hold up, let me explain before you get mad about those last two, since the structure of how and when these 4 new affixes appear make sense. Let's start from 0 and work our way up the key levels. At +1, there'll be no affixes. Then, starting at +2, the 2 Xal'atath's Bargain affixes will become active, with only 1 active at a time, rotating weekly. Once you get to +4, Tyrannical or Fortified then shows up to the party, also rotating weekly. Getting to +7 then adds Challenger's Peril. At +10, both Tyrannical and Fortified are then active at the same time. At the +10 and 11 level, you are basically at the pinnacle of what gear you can earn from Mythic Plus, so any further would just be to push your score for the sake of showing your skill and for the competitive fun of the game. Because of this, once you hit +12, the Bargain affixes go away and are replaced by Xal'atath's Guile, making it just flat out harder for those who enjoy pushing the leaderboard for the sake of the challenge. This all means that if you're playing M+ for the gear, you only need to hit up like 8s and 9s for the best gear to come from your vault, and not push further where you could see the more difficult affix combinations. At +2 and 3, for some pretty decent loot, you only need to mess with 1 affix that can also benefit you if you play well enough. Now I will remind you, I am on the outside of Mythic Plus, but it is an important pillar of the game, so I want it to be in a good state for those who do enjoy it. If these changes are positive and the sentiment is good, then maybe I will actually try to interact with the game mode more in the War Within. Now of course, if you indulge in a bunch of Mythic Plus, I would really love to hear your take on these changes in the comments below. Are they good? Good enough to keep Mythic Plus populated? Or is it not enough? Please let me know. So that's all for the news this week. At least everything I thought was notable. So, have I even been playing WoW this week? Nope, not really. As I mentioned in my last news video, I've got some other games to play right now. I'm still chipping away at Shadow of the Erdtree, which is tough as nails, by the way. I would say I'm pretty average at the games From Software puts out, so I won't lie, it is kinda brutal. But I am getting through it slowly, although that progress has been slowed by another release I have been looking forward to. WoW isn't my only MMO, and Final Fantasy XIV is very cozy to me and very dear to me. Dawntrail just came out into early access, and I've been frantically leveling one of the new jobs. That's what they call classes over there, by the way, to use to play through the new story with. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with how well the game is holding up after the chaos that was the previous expansion Endwalker's launch. I love WoW to death, but it is important to take breaks. Remember, you don't really need to get everything in WoW right now, even time-limited stuff. If you're feeling burnt out from going crazy farming in Remix or something, just put the game down for a bit, take a step back, and breathe. I promise you there are other good games out there, and WoW isn't going anywhere. Take a break to feel refreshed by the time War Within rolls around, and then you can go Goblin mode once again. Speaking of War Within, still no official release date yet for the Prepatch, at least not at the time of making this video. But I am watching for it, got my eyes scanning all sources of WoW news for when it finally rears its head. If you're thinking about sticking around, I do have some other videos in the pipeline. Like I mentioned, I'm probably going to do a small video taking a look at the July trading post stuff in more detail once it's in the live game. And I've got a video all about the Haranir and allied races in general cooking as well, so please consider watching out for those. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this up so I can get back to gaming, so thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you made it all the way through, holy shit, thanks so much. That means a lot to me. But also, please let me know what you think of those Mythic Plus changes. Please consider leaving a like if you enjoy how I do things here, and subscribing would mean the world to me. Until next time, stay safe, bros.